Hi, I'm Theo, 34, and last Friday night at family dinner, my sister's husband thought it'd be hilarious to humiliate me in front of everyone. What he didn't know was, I own the house we were sitting in, and he just triggered the worst mistake of his life. It started with mashed potatoes and passive aggression. Mom had just set down the bowl when Blake, my brother-in-law and full-time overconfident gym bro, leaned back in his chair and said, "So Theo still job hunting? Must be nice, living off unemployment, while the rest of us work for a living." The entire table froze. Even the gravy stopped mid-drip on Sarah's spoon. But then my dad chuckled, my sister looked away, and someone, probably Aunt Linda, snorted into her wine. I blinked. Let's back up. 3 months ago, I sold my second startup. Quietly. No press, no announcement. Just wired $8.6 million into a trust and disappeared into low-key early retirement. Everyone assumed I got laid off when my company shut down, which I let them believe because, honestly, I didn't feel like explaining blockchain logistics to people who still print MapQuest directions. So yeah, technically unemployed. Emotionally? Thriving. Blake, on the other hand, sells solar panels door to door. Wears a Rolex he financed. Thinks Andrew Tate is a thought leader. And for some reason, ever since marrying my sister 2 years ago, he's decided I'm his personal punching bag. You know what they say, he added with a smug grin. Those who can't do lounge in their childhood bedrooms. Another laugh. My mother actually chuckled this time. I smiled. A small, tight one. Oh, I moved out last month, I said. You didn't hear? Blake raised a brow. Where to? Your buddy's couch? No, I said. This house. He blinked. What? This house, I repeated, picking up my wine glass and tapping the stem against the mahogany dining table. I bought it from Mom and Dad in July. The silence was instant. Beautiful. I let that hang a second before adding. So technically, Blake, you're eating your free Sunday roast in my house. Mom dropped her fork. Aunt Linda whispered. Holy sh. Blake's smirk faltered, and I swear I saw a tiny bead of sweat trickle down his temple. But the best part. We were just getting started. Blake scoffed like I just told him I moonlighted as a wizard. You bought this house? From your parents? Yup, I said, popping the P. Cash. Wire transfer. Closed in 14 days. Mom, to her credit, looked like she was trying to vanish into her linen napkin. Dad stared at his plate like the potatoes might save him. Only my sister, Jen, had the nerve to speak. Wait. You own the house? She asked slowly, eyes narrowing like she was doing the math in her head. Why the hell didn't you tell anyone? Because I knew Blake would react like this. I replied, gesturing vaguely toward his face, which had contorted into a beautiful mix of confusion, denial, and indigestion. Bull, Blake said. There's no way you had the money. You don't even have a job. I took a slow sip of wine. Right, I said. Because if someone's not posting about their paycheck on LinkedIn, they must be broke. He turned to Jen. He's lying. Jen gave me a look, and I could see it dawn on her. Wait, she said. Wait, wasn't your company that logistics thing that got bought out by? Sure, I said, winking. Let's not bore everyone with mergers and exit clauses. But yeah? Blake's eyes twitched. So you're rich now? I'm comfortable, I said. Comfortable enough to, say, renovate this place. Or evict some in-laws. Hypothetically. You'd think that would shut him up. Nope. Blake wasn't done digging. He pushed his chair back slightly and said, Well, if you're so rich, Theo, maybe you should finally get a girlfriend. Or at least a personality. The whole table gasped. My cousin Julian choked on a carrot. There it was. The deep cut. The classic fallback when you're losing, hit the personal life. Blake smirked, thinking he'd landed the KO. But what he didn't know was that I'd brought a date. She just hadn't come in yet. Because I hadn't needed her, until now. I took out my phone under the table, typed a single word, and hit send. Then I looked up, smiled at Blake, and said, You're right. I should introduce her. 3 seconds later, the doorbell rang. Blake chuckled. You invited a date to family dinner? What is she, imaginary? I stood. Actually, she's very real. And very punctual. I walked to the front door, my heart calmly thumping like I'd rehearsed this, which I had. Because unlike Blake, I prepare for things. Especially revenge. When I opened the door, in stepped Claire. She wore black wide-leg slacks, a wine-colored blouse that matched her lipstick, and a smile that could cut glass. She looked around the entryway, then at me. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "Parking was a nightmare." I leaned in and whispered, "You're right on time." I led her into the dining room like royalty. Blake had risen halfway from his seat, a confused smirk frozen on his face. Claire gave a polite nod to everyone. "Hi. I'm Claire. Theo's." She glanced at me, smirked. "Girlfriend." Blake's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Jen blinked. "Claire. Claire, wait. Are you Claire Devereaux?" Claire gave a small wave. "Yep." Cue the collective family brain explosion. Claire Devereaux was not just my girlfriend. She was also Claire Devereaux, founder of a boutique marketing agency, ex-VP at a cosmetics giant, and recent profile subject in Forbes Under 35. Blake had posted one of her TED Talks on LinkedIn 6 months ago with the caption, "Wifey-level inspiration." His ears turned pink. Then red. Then I think he left his body briefly. "You're dating him?" Blake asked, pointing at me like I was a stray animal that wandered in from a dumpster. Claire tilted her head. "Yes." "And?" He floundered. I mean, he doesn't seem like your type." "Oh, I know," she said sweetly. "My type used to be loud guys with no self-awareness. Grew out of it." Julian dropped his fork. Blake looked around for backup. None came. Mom was staring at her wine like it had betrayed her. Dad coughed. "My sister?" Oh, Jen was very, very quiet. The wheels in her head were screaming. I pulled out Claire's chair for her and sat back down. "So," I said, grabbing the gravy boat, "anyone want to keep pretending I'm a loser, or should we move on to dessert?" And just like that, dinner shifted. Blake, once the table's loudest voice, had nothing to say. But he wasn't done. Because 5 minutes later, he excused himself to the bathroom. And 10 minutes after that, I caught him snooping around my upstairs office. What was he looking for? Proof. Or maybe a way to undo what he just triggered. What he found was worse. I followed Blake up the stairs silently, barefoot on the hardwood so he wouldn't hear me. Claire saw me slip away and raised a brow, but I gave her a small nod. She knew the plan. She also knew Blake. I found him in my old room, now my office, fumbling through drawers like a raccoon on meth. His suit jacket was slung over the chair, sweat blotched under his arms, and his phone was lit up on my desk, camera app open. "Lose something?" I said casually, leaning against the doorway. He spun around so fast he nearly elbowed my lamp off the table. "Jesus, what the hell, man? You don't just sneak up on people. You don't just break into other people's offices," I replied. "Well, not unless you're stupid. Or desperate." "You're what, column B?" He gave a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. I wasn't breaking in. Just looking for the bathroom. I walked over and picked up his phone, glancing at the screen. Ah, yes. The famous bathroom drawer camouflage app, found next to my tax returns and company purchase agreement. He tried to snatch the phone, but I held it up and out of reach. I'm 6 feet 2 inches. He's whatever the height of misplaced confidence is. "What are you doing, Blake?" I asked, voice low now. "Trying to find proof I'm lying? Some way to expose me?" He straightened his shirt. "Look, I just don't like being made a fool in front of the family." I smiled. "You weren't made a fool. You made yourself one. All I did was set the table." He stepped closer. "You think you're so smart. So above everyone else. But I know your type. You hide behind tech and money and sarcasm, but deep down, you're still the same loser that used to cry when Jen beat you at Scrabble." That one stung a bit. I was sensitive about Scrabble. But I let the jab pass. "Funny," I said, "because you're still the same guy who peaked at high school lacrosse and thinks networking means commenting 'Let's connect' under Gary V videos." He flinched like he'd been slapped. "I've tolerated your crap for 2 years," I continued, stepping into his space now. "You take shots at me every chance you get because you think I'm safe. Because I don't bite back." He blinked, but didn't respond. "But here's what you didn't expect, Blake. You didn't expect me to own this house. To date Claire. To be richer than every branch of this family tree combined. Money doesn't make you better." He spat. "No," I said. "But it sure makes it easier to kick entitled clowns out of my house after dinner." His eyes narrowed. You wouldn't. I tilted my head. Try me. We stared at each other for a long, simmering beat. Then I stepped back, tossed his phone onto the chair, and said, You've got 5 minutes. Say your goodbyes. He stayed rooted, fists clenched. If you kick me out, you'll break this family. I laughed, actually laughed. You think this family's not already broken? You humiliated me in front of everyone for sport. That dinner was just the final crack in glass that's been shattered since Jen picked you over basic decency. Blake stared, jaw grinding. I could see the internal gears churning, calculating whether it was worth it to try to talk his way out. Spoiler, it wasn't. He stormed past me, shoving my shoulder like a toddler. I followed him downstairs, slow, savoring it. The entire dining room went quiet when Blake appeared again, red-faced, shoulders tense, jaw clenched. Claire raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? Blake didn't respond. He picked up his jacket, grabbed his keys, and without a word, marched to the front door. Don't forget your Tupperware. I called after him. He slammed the door hard enough to rattle the plates. A moment later, Mom finally spoke. Theo, what just happened? I walked to the head of the table, poured myself more wine, and sat down. What happened? I said calmly, as I stopped playing along. Jen looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Aunt Linda looked like she wanted popcorn. Claire reached under the table and squeezed my hand. No one moved. Until Dad finally said, So are we still having pie? That broke the tension. Claire laughed. Julian coughed. Someone said, Pass the whipped cream. And just like that, the evening lurched back into motion, but different now. Quieter. Respectful. I wasn't invisible anymore. And I wasn't done. Because Blake's little stunt upstairs triggered a chain reaction. See, while he was rummaging through my drawers, he accidentally left his phone unlocked. And what I saw on his screen? That changed everything. When Blake left his phone unlocked on my desk, he was too focused on tearing me down to realize he'd just given me ammo. At first, I didn't mean to look. I swear. I just picked it up to check what app he was using. But when I saw the open message thread at the top, Jen Red Heart, and the preview bubble said, Don't tell Theo I used the. My instincts kicked in. Yeah. I tapped it. I know. Privacy, ethics, yada yada. But you can't talk morals to the guy who just tried to expose you in your own home. The thread was long, and the first message I read made my stomach drop. Jen, don't tell Theo I used the emergency savings for the car. Blake needed it for the business. Blake. He's never gonna find out. He thinks it's still in that Fidelity account. Just keep dodging it. I froze. That account was for my niece's future. A small trust fund I'd set up years ago when Jen got pregnant. She'd hit a rough patch, and I offered to help, not for her, but for the baby. I'd quietly deposited $250 a month into a joint savings account we both had access to. She promised she wouldn't touch it unless it was a genuine emergency. Apparently, Blake needs rims for the company Jeep. Counted. I kept reading. Jen, just don't let him log in. Say you lost the password again. Blake. Elmio. He's too passive to call us out anyway. Guy barely defends himself when I roast him at dinner. Jen. Yeah, but tonight might have gone too far. He looked different. Damn right I looked different. I'd become different. I quickly took a screenshot and airdropped it to my laptop. My hands were shaking, but not from nerves, from clarity. This wasn't just about Blake. Jen was in on it too. And for some reason, that hurt more than anything he'd said. I stared at that thread for a while, long after Blake had stormed out. Then I walked back down to the dining room, sat next to Claire, and smiled like nothing had happened. But inside? Plans were forming. After dinner, people started leaving. My parents lingered the longest, quietly mumbling thanks and pretending not to notice that Blake was missing. Aunt Linda offered to help with dishes, then bailed when Claire said we had it covered. By 10 p.m., it was just me, Claire, and Jen. She hovered by the fireplace, arms crossed, clearly debating whether to stay or leave. She finally walked over and said, I'm sorry about him. I tilted my head. Which part? She sighed. All of it. Blake. He's just stressed lately. I nodded slowly. Stressed enough to steal from his daughter's college fund? She froze. I let that silence hang in the air like a noose. You read our messages, she said finally, voice hollow. I did, I replied. Which, I admit, isn't great. But it's also not as bad as stealing from your kid, so I think I win this round. She turned red. I didn't think you'd notice. That's the theme tonight, isn't it? Underestimating me. Claire stood, quiet but steady, and joined me at my side. Her presence alone made Jen shift uncomfortably. I trusted you, I said, the hurt finally rising in my throat. Out of everyone in this family, you? And you sold me out for, what? Blake's business dreams and a pair of custom tires. Jen opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly but firmly. Tomorrow, you're transferring every dollar you've spent back into that account. With interest. I don't care if it comes from Blake's business or your personal savings or his precious Jeep. That money goes back. Her jaw clenched. You can't just. Oh, but I can, I said. Because if I don't see that balance restored by Friday, I'm calling a lawyer. And I'm pressing charges for fraud. The account was set up for your daughter. You took from her, not just from me. Claire added. And if you want to keep custody uncontested, I'd take this seriously. Judges tend to frown on financial abuse of minors. Jen went pale. The room was dead silent again. You have until Friday, I repeated. She stood there for a long moment, then turned and walked out without a word. The door clicked shut behind her. Claire exhaled. You okay? Not really, I said. But I think I'm finally free. And I was. But it wasn't over. Because while I cleaned up the last of the wine glasses and threw away Blake's untouched plate, a notification popped up on my laptop. New email. From an unfamiliar address. Subject line. You're not the only one Blake screwed over. The email hit me like a cold gust of air. No greeting. No fluff. Just 3 short paragraphs and 4 attached PDFs. Theo. You don't know me, but you need to read this. Blake borrowed money from me, my husband, and 3 others under the guise of a solar expansion project. Never paid us back. I found your name through property records when I realized he listed your house as a guaranteed asset in one of the contracts. Happy Thanksgiving. Michelle C. I sat there staring at the screen like it was written in Morse code. Claire leaned over. Who's Michelle? I opened the first PDF. It was a scanned contract between Blake and Michelle Carter, complete with his sloppy signature and yep, my address listed as a fallback collateral asset. I opened the second. Same thing. This time from a Mark Johnson. The third? A $15,000 wire from some guy in Arizona. All of them promised insane ROI if they helped scale the company's regional solar sales presence. It was a Ponzi scheme. Not a clever one. Not even a subtle one. Blake was borrowing money, promising high returns, using his connection to my house as a credibility booster, and ghosting people when the deadlines hit. Claire muttered. This guy's not just a jerk. He's criminal. I emailed Michelle back, asked for her number. She responded in seconds. 10 minutes later, we were on the phone. He's a pathological liar, she said, her voice calm and bitter. Told me he was close to a big acquisition deal. Said his wife's brother was a silent investor who backed him with real estate. That was you, right? Yep. He used your name like it meant something. Like you endorsed him. Said this house was part of his assets. My stomach turned. Did you ever come here? No. But I googled it after he stopped answering. Saw your name on the deed. I figured it out. You're not part of this, are you? Not remotely, I said. She paused. Want to be? What do you mean? We're filing a civil suit. Fraud, misrepresentation, and theft. We're pooling legal fees. You're technically part of the scam. He used your identity as leverage. If you're willing to testify, your statement could blow this whole thing open. I looked at Claire. She gave me one nod. Send me the documents, I said. When the call ended, I sat back, the weight of it all finally catching up. I wasn't just a victim of family drama anymore. I was a key witness in what was about to become Blake versus the world. Claire started gathering dishes. You okay? Almost, I said. Almost? I turned to her. There's just one last thing I need to do. The next morning, I called Jen. She didn't answer. I texted her. Hey. We need to talk. I have something you should see before Friday. No reply. So I drove over. She opened the door looking like she hadn't slept. Blake was sitting on the couch, shirtless, scrolling TikTok like a man without a care. You shouldn't be here, Jen said. I'll be gone in 5 minutes. Just need you to see something. I stepped inside, opened my laptop on their kitchen island, and pulled up the PDF contracts. Blake didn't even look up. What is that, some nerd crap? It's your nerd crap, Blake, I said. You listed my house as a guaranteed asset for at least 4 fake investment deals. One of them just emailed me. They're pressing charges. That got his attention. Jen slowly walked toward the screen. You what? I turned the laptop so she could see. He used your last name on one contract. Did you sign anything? I don't know, Blake said. You're in this now. If you didn't sign, you better hope he forged it. Otherwise, congratulations, you're both in the lawsuit. Blake shot to his feet. You have no proof I did anything illegal. I clicked the folder labeled Evidence. There's video, I said. Screenshots. Email chains. Voice memos. His face went full blank. Jen covered her mouth. I pulled out a manila envelope and slid it across the counter. That's from Michelle Carter's lawyer. You're being served. He didn't touch it. I'd get one of your own, I added. Quickly. As I turned to leave, Jen whispered, Theo, why didn't you tell me sooner? I paused at the door. Because I wanted to believe you were just caught up in his crap, I said. But now? I'm not so sure. Back home, Claire and I sat on the porch, sipping coffee like retirees. So what happens now? She asked. Now? I said. Now we wait. And we didn't have to wait long. Because the next morning, the story broke online. Local entrepreneur Blake Carlson accused of fraud. Mugshot. Headlines. A photo of my house in the background. And suddenly, the family text thread lit up like a Christmas tree. The family group chat hadn't been active in weeks, until that morning. Is this real? Uncle Rick. Blake? Aunt Linda. Why is your house in the background? Dad. Theo, can we talk? I didn't reply. Not right away. I let them stew. Let them all sit in that same silence they gave me every Thanksgiving, every dinner, every time Blake made me the punchline and they just laughed or looked away. Claire sat beside me, reading over my shoulder, sipping coffee like it was a movie premiere. Then Jen called. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. Her voice was small. I didn't know how bad it was. Didn't you? I said. I knew he borrowed money, she admitted. I didn't know he used your name. Or the house. I didn't know it was fraud. You didn't ask, I said. You just looked away. Like the rest of them. Silence. I'm sorry, she whispered. That landed differently. Not as a trick or a dodge, just a real, broken apology. I took a breath. I'm not pressing charges against you. But you are a witness now. Be honest. Cooperate. And fix what you can. For your daughter. I will, she said. Then, like a whisper, do you hate me? I didn't answer right away. I don't hate you, I said. But I don't trust you. Not yet. We hung up. And it felt like something finally settled. By the end of the week, Blake was formally charged with 3 counts of fraud and 1 count of identity misrepresentation. His business website vanished. His LinkedIn became a ghost town. The group of victims kept growing. Turns out he owed nearly $120,000 to friends, neighbors, a retired couple, and one poor dude from his gym who just wanted to invest in green energy. Claire and I sent our joint statement to the DA. It felt like therapy typed in 12-point font. The house? I kept it. Renovated the dining room. New table. New light fixture. The old one still smelled like gravy and repressed rage. Mom eventually called. So did Dad. They both wanted to talk. Apologize. Explain. I said they could come by next month, for coffee. Not dinner. They agreed. 2 months later, Claire and I hosted our first real gathering in the house. No passive-aggressive small talk. No family hierarchy. Just close friends, soft music, and a fire pit out back. Julian showed up with a bottle of wine and said, Still can't believe you pulled that off. I shrugged. He pulled the pin. I just stepped back. Claire clinked her glass against mine. To taking back your power. I raised mine. And finally, getting to finish a damn meal in peace. We all laughed. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the joke at the table. I was the host. And they all knew who owned the house now.